I'm here with the lovely Jonathan Pines. How are you, mate?
Nice to see you again. Always a pleasure.
At Rupert Neve Designs. Is that the name of the company
Yes.
officially? For those of us that know about Neve, we just like to say Rupert Neve. We, in fact, just like to say Neve. Did I just say that out loud?
Yes. 500 series is super popular these days. One of the reasons it's popular is you can mix and match. You can put in the things that you want. You can have the pieces that you enjoy. It's also, frankly, at a better price than a lot of the other things out there.
Absolutely.
And for both of our customers, we're looking for things that provide value.
Sure.
So we were particularly proud of the 511 mic pre because it was the first time that we actually brought out a mic pre under $1,000.
Great.
For us, was a big deal. Was to break that price threshold, but still have Class A quality, still have a transformer base, still have silk, the things that we're known for at Rupert Neve Designs. And at $550, it's a really good deal.
Oh, $550?
Yeah, and
That's great.
We have people loading up. You know, they'll buy typical patterns. Somebody buys one.
That's with a
they buy
transformer?
two. Yeah, transformer-based output,
Nice.
transformer-based input. So
Very nice
done the
indeed.
right way.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And you know, one of the things about Rupert that people forget about is that he's been a transformer designer all his life. He started at Partridge. Partridge is the output transformer in a high watt, you know, an orange.
My favorite amp ever is a Laney,
There you go.
Partridge transformers.
And Rupert used to sort of famously say this about it. He goes, well, they weren't very good, but people really liked them.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
So
He always said about
then
EQ as well that it was correctional only.
right.
You know, don't boost, just cut. You know, correctional only.
And so out of that grew, you know, Rupert learned more and more and more about transformers and
Right.
really worked in looking at different characteristics from it.
Wonderful.
And so we still, to this day, we don't use someone else's transformer. We build our own custom wound
Oh, that's
transformer in
fantastic.
the United States.
That's a big deal. So these are the pre's here. We got some EQs
So we have
here.
tape emulators here. And
Oh,
we have
that's what this
equalizers
is.
Here. You have an input transformer that you can saturate with an addition of a soft clip input circuitry. So you can keep hitting that harder, get some saturation effects that are static or constant. Then you have an output transformer that's available with silk red or silk blue. So what's the difference there? And what is silk? Silk is we're taking the extra taps on the output of the transformer and saturating the core of the transformer, but through a Zobel network to weight it for harmonics. So silk blue is a 1064. It's that
nice.
heft and weight of a 1064. Silk red is a 1073, so it's got that mid-range drive and that, you know, sort of forwardness. So the other thing this has is a third transformer, which is in fact, you know, a tape head is
Nice.
in fact half a transformer. So we have the equivalent of essentially a gapless transformer here that you can also control the amount of drive that you would for your tape head. So instead of emulating it with a plug-in where you're looking at different kinds of distortions, you're actually saturating more iron there. So you can saturate iron at 3 points. We have EQ circuitry that's modeling 15 IPS and 30 IPS. And it's not modeling, it actually is. You've got that head bump.
Is it a digital simulation or is it?
There's 100% analog device.
Great.
All Class A. There's a
I'm gonna have
blend
to try these
control.
out.
There's a blend control. And so you've got all these different ways to hit it. You can hit it on the input side, you can hit it on
Are
the
they
output
linkable?
side. Yep. And no, actually, I'm sorry, they're not linkable.
Right.
There isn't a stereo link built in. One of the reasons for that is because they behave a little bit more non-linearly, you
Right.
kind of have to match them if you know, we have a lot of people who use them on stereo buses,
Right.
but you definitely want to match them in terms of the drive level.
Wonderful.
It's,
And how much are these?
These are around $750.
Right. Great. And then the EQs?
EQ, okay, this is the 551 equalizer. And here we were really looking at trying to do some best of with Rupert. Okay. In more recent times in his EQ designs, he's gone to more modern EQ designs. But we said, all right, let's look back. Let's see if we can actually do a inductor-based EQ with the sound of the classic thing. So again, here we're looking at the inductor-based EQ from a 1064, that real heavy heft. And in the mid-range, we've got a 1073. So we added a couple extra frequencies. We added a Q control like you'd see on a 1079, a couple extra tricks. And then on the top, we have a little bit more modern design, a little bit more air and open design, switchable between 8 and 16K. So you can actually hear, you can't in this noisy environment, but as you switch this, you can hear it, the relays clicking back and forth. And that's the real way to do it, as opposed to you know, some other.
I used to have an 8058, so I remember those kind of things very well. That's fantastic.
I'm sorry, I believe this is actually 850 and this is 750.
Marvelous. It's great to see you, mate.
Awesome.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
showing us around.
Wonderful.
Hi, we're here with Quinto from Sknote.
Right.
Okay, what does SK stand for?
And they were the first two letters from the name of my first band.
Ah,
Yeah, so that's,
that's
a
cool.
secret. That's a secret.
Oh, I
Yeah.
like that. I like that. It's a more interesting story than like it's it stands for solidarity through kinetic energy.
No.
That's great.
Nothing so fashion.
So we should probably move over to here for a second. What are all the plugins that I want to ask you about on here? Firstly, let's talk about this analog channel.
Okay.
So you're running Reaper here, great.
Yes. It's Reaper. I love Reaper because it's so lightweight, so
Right.
easy to launch, so fast.
Right. A lot of
You can
guys
use
are
it,
following.
Yeah, and you can use it on your USB key, for example, and start and run from there
Right.
without any need for installing it.
Right.
Installation is quite simple to use.
Wonderful.
It's powerful, and they have a fantastic pricing policy, so you can pay it really cheap if you are not getting money out of it. Or
Right.
still cheap, like $200 if you are working seriously with it and getting money. If you are working with it for your job, but it's still very cheap. And it is very powerful because you
It's
can.
like an open platform, isn't it? So people can
Yeah.
write code for
Yeah.
it.
You can program your own plugins on a custom format, which is
Wonderful.
called, I think, Jesus Sonic. I love it. We use it in the studio too.
And does it use VST?
Yeah.
VST. So that's. I've
Yeah.
recently only really got into VST. I used the blue patchwork inside of Pro Tools, and
Yeah.
I couldn't believe how it opened up my life to all these different plugins, like your plugins. So let's talk about what have we got going on here.
We can open just a few. This one is original. This one is an emulation for an EMT reverb. You know the old one, the first
Yeah.
digital reverb.
I do.
Which looks like the controls for a Starship.
Yeah, we call it the R2D2
Ah,
because it looks like a little robot. Yeah. That's wonderful.
This one is from a very old Gates compressor from year 1949. This
Nice.
unit is in ROM, and we modeled it after that unit. In ROM is a huge unit, like 40 kilograms.
Wow.
And
Wow.
came very well. And we have like 30 plugins, so just
Well,
pick something.
What I love about your stuff is the affordability. Like, how much is this reverb, for instance, this plugin?
sorry.
How
What?
much is the plugin in US dollars?
$30.
$30.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's really, really great. Now, this is the analog channel, which got me all excited here, which you're saying is about $30 as well. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
It comes together with a set of compressors. So the bundle is called the Strip Bass, but they actually are two products. Strip,
Oh, wow.
which is this one, Strip, and Bass. Bass is for the master channel, but it's not needed for the overall modeling of the console. It's just a set of features for the master bass, like compressors, stereo
Right.
compressors, and more. And it's coming. The new update is coming with some kind of enhancer for the mix.
Right.
This one is for the console emulation. And what's special with this one is it's, I think, the only plugin today where all units are working together as one to
Right.
build one console.
Right. Wonderful.
So they talk one to each other and so on. This is the last release, which is the version 3, and it includes one 3-band equalizer with a dynamic option.
Great.
So when you activate dynamic, it moves with an incoming signal to be more transparent and acting only on the attacks and not on the sustain, for example. So you
Great.
get some kind of different equalization. It's called C165A.
There it is. Okay.
Great.
We added some features, of course, because with software you can easily add whatever you want
Yes.
without increasing costs and so
Right.
on. So here you have sidechain filters.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, and in an internal mix knob, so you
I love
can
this.
do phase aligned.
Like you can
Yeah.
make it feel like a parallel compression. Yeah.
Because this one is 4 times oversampled. So
Right.
if you do parallel compression yourself, you get some phase issues.
Sure.
By this one, it's aligned, it's perfectly aligned, so you don't get anything canceling
Right.
out and so on.
That's wonderful.
And this one is mainly used for its auto mode, you know, the
Sure.
over easy
Yeah.
mode, which works really great on bass drum, snare drum, which is the reason why people keeps buying
I love it
other
on
units
vocals, to
today.
be honest. I love it. I mean, my vocal chain's always been a 1073 to a 165 to an 1176. That's always been my vocal chain for years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's just a wonderful emulation.
Yeah, and that's why we designed this one.
So what's this? Tell us about this.
RP165A stands for the same thing, but
Right.
it's an original design. It's not a remake of the DBX.
Right.
But we kept the same structure of the compression, so you get VCA compression, quite
Right.
clean and well controlled, modern
Yep.
compression, with some color on the VCA.
Right.
The more you compress, the more the VCA gets some color, frequency dependent color. The automatic mode, so you get that kind of behavior.
Yep.
When you engage it, you don't have any control on attack release, but you get that huge release that never ends and gives
Sure.
that good tail to your drums, for
Right.
example. And you have a limiter after the compression.
Right.
Yeah, that's what the A in the name stands for in the original unit. Because they used to sell the DBX 165 without the A, then added the limiter and the A.
How much is this?
This is 250 euro, which is about $300 each.
Wonderful.
With a microphone input and line input. So
That's
you
great.
can plug your microphone straight in. And if you are, for example, tracking a drum set, you can just put a few of these on the ground and plug the microphone straight in.
It's great.
And track the drum set through compressors the old way.
Yeah.
If you are doing rock drums, for example, if you want to do it like they used to do to get a lot of the final sound immediately while tracking,
Sure.
you can do it really cheap, because if you have, for example, 4, 5, or 6 of these in your backpack, you are building a studio with just 1,000 half, for example.
Yeah.
So if you are, and they are quite useful for bedroom producers, I think.
Yeah.
Because they fit quite easily in your bedroom.
I know, I'm all about value for money. I like, finding things like this. This is really exciting. Thank you ever so much for your time.
Thank you for
Quinto,
this.
I really appreciate it. And
you very much.
check out it is www.sknote.it. It will come up on the bottom of the screen.
So let's look at this record. So I'm seeing a lot of drum tracks right here, right off the bat.
Yeah.
We've got 3 kick drum tracks. We've got
Yep.
6 maybe snare tracks. Tell us a little bit about the process.
Well, what
and
I did is I
what
didn't-
made these happen.
I'm not going to lie and say we didn't do tricks. We did tricks. Now, what is going on a lot here is like, well, first of all, the kicks are obvious. You've got the kick in. You've got the mic, D112 inside. I'm not reinventing the wheel here on this one. The kick out. Interestingly enough, I started off with the FET 47, which is the traditional outside kick mic. And we had this thing where we were moving the FET between the kick and the bass amp, deciding where it
you wanted to
sounded
use
best.
it. If you had one.
So I had one.
Yeah.
It ended up staying on the bass amp. And I got the band to buy an Audio Technica, like an 87 kind of sounding Audio Technica
4050?
Probably a 4050.
4050,
It was like
yeah.
$600-700 bucks.
Yeah.
And I ended up putting that on the kick because we were tracking live. Like all the rhythm section on this is live, and most of the guitars are live. And so, with some things I'll tell you about in a second. So I ended up putting the Audio Technica, the $600, $700 mic on the kick. And to be honest, the outside kick, to be honest, it sounded better than the FET. It seemed to pick up more of the air and more of that bonhomness. And then the sub was a good old-fashioned NS10, but a homemade NS10 kick. You know the NS10?
So you take the woofer out, hang it on a couple of mic stands, and then
Yeah.
run that in a direct box, and you've made a Yamaha sub kick for a little less money.
Yeah. Well, I think they built it as in a response, because people were doing that before. They built the sub kick later on. Yeah, so that's the Audio Technica. And so what I had is the band had bought. We had talked about going there, and they had this nice little studio space. They were paying like.
There's your kick sub.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. Gives you good air.
So you've got this mass of things. Kick's pretty easy, but you've got snare top, you've got snare top 2.
So I'll tell you
what
what.
sample.
I'll tell you. Yeah, well, it's the same thing, believe it or not. What it is the snare top and bottom. Good old-fashioned 57 top and bottom. Wasn't breaking any ground with that one, any new ground. And then what the snare top and the cleaner-looking ones are actually the snare against itself. What I'd done is when I was doing the Augustana record and a couple of records before that, I found that it was tough to get samples in a mix to make any kind of sense unless you really wanted to dramatically change the drum sound. And, you know, sometimes you've got small drums, you want them to make them sound bigger in a small room. You know, samples can be your friend. But what I like to do, and these were mixed below, is to actually just, after the take is finished, just play the snare and just take the snare itself and make a sample of itself and put it against it. And that's what those are. They're not, if you listen to them, they're the same snare. Then you put the other snare in against it and it won't suddenly dramatically change tone. Because otherwise you're dealing with like 18 different samples. You get a lot of the time you're using snare samples, and with Addictive and stuff, of course, or Easy Drummer or Stephen Slate's one, you can pitch the snare, but trying to match samples with live snares is always a game.
2 bottom mics, which is a little bit unusual too.
Well, because I just kept them separate. Because the snare sample, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. What I did is at the end of the take, I recorded the snare again, just single hits, and laid that across as a sample, just to strengthen the actual snare in the mix. And it meant that I kept the sound of the drums without putting in a different snare sample. I just use it against itself.
And then you have multiple overheads. You have your overhead left and right. You have the center.
If I can, I use 3 if I've got the option. It's just nice to me, it's like you could take the kick in, the snare top, and the 2 left and right overheads, and you should have a half-decent drum sound. So basically what happened is we did the basic tracking in Sausalito, and then we came to do some fixes. So do you guys know this thing, the drum dial? This is like my favorite piece of $100 or less equipment. What I did is we had to do drum fixes and changes months apart from each other. That thing is a miracle worker. So that's the snare. I think it's like a 72 or 73 Ludwig Supraphonic, $150 eBay purchase. And what you do is you just go around, I should have illustrated by writing on it, but you just go around where all the lugs are and you just mark off the tension.
And you make sure that they're either all at the even tension or whatever tension you want to have.
Well, yeah, definitely. When it sounds great, that's when you go, I love the sound, and then you go in and you mark it off, and then between takes or whatever, you check the tension, and you check it's always the same. But it got worse than that, because what happened is we had to we changed the groove in the choruses, so we ended up having to replay the choruses months between. So then we have to get out the Supraphonic, put a brand new head on because the head is completely crapped out, and sit there and match all the tension using the drum dial. Yeah, so basically the snare was changed months apart. The snare head was changed months apart, but the drum sound remained constant because of that little tool. I mean, it's insane. It's the best less than $100 I've ever spent on anything.
Okay, so as engineers, you're often called upon to tune the drums, right? Or you go out there and the drums don't sound that good, and you want to be able to offer some input. So what he's saying is this is a great tool for being able to learn, because, you know, if you have a great drummer, they know how to tune the drums by ear and by feel. You as an engineer may not know how to do that. You may not know how to get a drum tuned evenly. You may not know how to perceive it. This is a device that lets you do it fairly automatically, correct?
Yep. Well, yeah. I mean, to me, it's like once you get it where it sounds good, you mark it off. You can always come back to it.
So you make a little chart saying this lug, this lug.
Well, no, you just write on, just literally
write it on the head.
Go up to there. And unfortunately, I should have done it to illustrate in this photograph, but you just write all the way around. Just mark it off, see where the tension is, write down the number, move to the next love, write it down. And I'm telling you, that was recorded, the drums were recorded on 2 completely different days, months apart, with a brand new head each time. And all we did was match all the tensions the same, and it came back exactly the same. So we're here at the Focusrite booth, and we're going to talk to Ben about the new Clarett range. Hey Ben, how are you?
Hey, doing well. Thank
Marvelous.
you. Thank you for coming by.
So tell us a little bit about what we're going on here.
Right here, we have our Focusrite Clarett interfaces. These are the better, faster, easier solution for recording audio on a Macintosh. There's Windows compatibility coming in the future. Right now, it's Thunderbolt. So for Apple users out there, this is the way to go.
Great, great.
Better preamps that model our ISA transformer-based preamps.
Oh, so it's transformer-based?
Transformer-based, but transformer-less inside.
Right.
So it's hardware emulation through hardware circuitry that will model the ISA sound.
Right.
Brand new linear gain pots, so you can accurately dial in your volume, your gain. Also, on the back of the Tupre, you have 4 analog outputs and an optical input for adding 8 more channels of preamps.
Nice.
So here we have the Tupre starting at $4.99, and this is the best way to record music on your Apple.
Great. And now latency-wise, have you overcome a lot of those issues?
We have not experienced any issues with latency because it's so low, you can track your favorite plugins in real time without experiencing any noticeable delay.
Oh, wow, that's a huge difference.
Very big difference.
Yeah, that's great, yeah. I get asked about that all the time with the latency.
Yeah.
Great, good job. And then what's the next one up?
The next one up would be our Clarett 4 Pre with 4 preamps and 4 line inputs on the back, 4 preamps on the front. To note also, you have halo indicators on each gain pot, so you'll be able to see when you're peaking or when you're in the green for accurate recording. Make sure you're not peaking out.
Wonderful.
Which is important, yeah. 2 independent headphone outputs on the front as well.
Great.
Nice metal gain for your monitors.
Yeah, this feels really sturdy. That's nice.
Very sturdy metal gain pots.
Great.
Linear gain, very nice design. Very robust. Also to note is that these are a screwless design. So it's a unibody. No screws shown anywhere on the product.
Oh, wow.
This is the way to record for an Apple.
Perfect.
So that's the 4 Pre.
And then still sub $1,000. What we got here?
So still for under $1,000, you get 8 preamps.
Great.
2 on the front, another 6 on the back with 10 analog outputs.
Yep.
Independent headphone controls also are very nice metal gain pots.
Yep.
And the same preamps that you find in the little guys, you find in the bigger guys as well.
Wonderful.
Then jumps up to the 8 Pre X. Now the 8 Pre X has independent phantom power, high pass filter, and phase flip on every analog input.
Nice.
So you'll be able to install this in your studio. Also to note, on the 8 Pre X, you have discrete inputs. So you have your XLR and 1/4-inch inputs. So you can leave these cables plugged in all the time and not have to worry about any kind of plugging out and plugging in.
That's great.
This is the way to go.
$1,300.
Yeah.
Great. Very nice indeed.
Indeed.
Yeah, this is good. I mean, we used a Sapphire recently in a demonstration, which was really nice, and that was covered a full drum kit. In my personal studio, I only use 8 mics on my kit.
Right.
I mean, obviously when I'm traveling to other studios, I'll do more inputs, but that's great.
Right.
And what's the maximum analog inputs on this?
This would be 8 analog inputs.
Yep.
And then expandable through ADAT, SPDIF, and MIDI in, and also word clock in and out on the big boy.
Right, great. And I love everything's Thunderbolt these days because it's super fast.
Super fast, resulting in super low latency, tracking more plugins, without have to worry about a delay. So that's what's key about the Focusrite Clarett.
Great. Yeah, because obviously on the previous stuff you would have a monitor control where you can monitor direct, so you wouldn't hear the latency. You don't have that because you're not getting the latency anymore.
Correct.
Perfect. Good job.
Yes.
Thanks for showing it to us.
Thank you. Thank you for checking out Focusrite Clarett.
Hi. So we're moving over now to the Rednet, and we're going to talk to Kurt. How are you, mate?
Nice to meet you. Thank you very
much. Good to meet you too. So what can you tell us? I'm just going to throw you in the deep end.
Okay, so we're the leading manufacturer of audio over IP or networking your audio. So if you need to share audio within a wired network, whether it's fiber or Cat5 or Cat6, we're the leading manufacturer. We have 13 interfaces that will connect your audio, converting it from analog or digital, fiber, MADI, all of the various formats into the Dante protocol. And then it's source to source. So you put a box where you are, you put a box where you need to be, and you send it through your existing infrastructure. A switch you can buy at a Best Buys, a cable you can buy very inexpensively and get rid of the copper issues of the integration of sound and buzzes and pops, and really keep the quality where it should be in the recording. And it's very flexible, very expandable, and it's doing very, very well for us.
Wonderful. So can you tell us a little bit about the product?
So essentially what we have here are our newer interfaces that came out this year. these are all redundant interfaces. So they have 2 power supplies and 2 Dante streams.
Right.
So you can have both Dante streams running at the same time. So if one fails, there's no switch over, it's just streaming. And then with the power supplies in case there's issues. The broadcast world and the live sound are gobbling these up. And we essentially have the first top box up here is the MP8R, which won all the awards at Infocom and NAB last year. This is the first preamp that has not only 8 preamps that have a splitter on them, so that you can go to 16 different outputs. You have 1 through 8 is for your primary source, and 9 through 16 is gain compensated for your in-ear guide. It was co-designed by Claire with the suggestions of what was needed in the live market, and it's accessible through a bunch of different sources. You can dial it into a Yamaha console and have it pull up on the QL or CL series. You can pull it up in Pro Tools. It comes up in Abbott's pre-protocol.
Nice.
You can access it here on the front panel normally, and then also it'll work through Systex. So it's a very good preamp for getting the source of the preamp as close to the mic as possible, or as a stage rack. So it's
wonderful.
Yeah, and it's for instead of buying 2 preamps, you buy 1 that works with 2 different digital sources. So it's really doing well, and especially in live sound and broadcast. And then next we have a D16R, which is 16 channels of AES that you can a lot of people use it for line arrays to send to their line amps through digital, through Dante. And then we have a HD32R, which is our bridge into the Pro Tools proprietary domain of DigiLink and Mini DigiLink. It has loop sync and work clock on it. It gives you essentially 32 channels of digital I/O to add to your existing Avid HD or HDX system, or to replace and become your interface. Very, very nice. Very, very
I have to hear
great
that.
system. Yeah, and it's a Swiss Army knife to get you into Avid's protocol. Okay, and then you add other boxes. So then we have the D64R, which is our 64-channel MADI box, which does very speed in SSL format. Very, very affordable box. All of our boxes sell for under $3,100 list price compared to our competitors. It's very competitively priced, so it's affordable. And then the other thing that I like to always talk about is Focusrite sound started with Rupert Neve in the 70s. And that's always the forefront of everything we do. And then we add networking. As opposed to network first, let's add a preamp. So the stuff has to sound good before it even gets to the networking stage. So that's paramount to what we do. After that, right here, I'm showing a Rednet 2, which is a 16 by 16 A to D and D to A converter. It's great to use as a digital patch bay. If you already have an existing infrastructure, I don't know about you, but my home studio has old analog and old digital and new digital and old analog, where I can hook it up to my TT patch bay, patch this into it, route my stuff into the Rednet network, and now I'm networking to my garage to cut vocals or to my piano downstairs. It just becomes a great digital patch bay to organizing stuff and keeping the word clock all organized.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Very important. New piece we just launched yesterday is the AM2. So the AM2 has a headphone jack output, and it also has 2 Neutrik XLR audio outputs to control your speakers. So you have a speaker box with muting for your control speakers, and then you have a headphone box. What's really cool about this is around back we have 2 Dante ports on it. So you have a Dante port for power over internet, Ethernet port, PoE, and then you have a port for your computer or to daisy chain other boxes. So whether you're into networking at all, if you just need a DAW, a control station, a digital control station, you buy DVS software from Audinate, $29, and it becomes the driver. Open up whatever DAW you're using, and this becomes your work-in-the-box headphone box. It lists for $499. The map is $399. It'll be available in about 5 months.
Great.
If then you are into networking, it becomes the perfect box to add to your MP8R, or if you're a live sound guy and you want to hear what's coming down channel 15 and 16 in Dante Control, you send 15 and 16 to here, you plug into the network, you listen to it over headphones. So as a diagnostic tool, it's going to be excellent. And it's got a little mic stand hook up on the bottom of it, or rubber feet to put on your desktop. So if you're a post editor and you need to hear audio, this is the way to go.
Wonderful.
If you're a network editor, this is the way to go. This is going to be very exciting for us as our first under $500 kind of an MI piece that can be at any garage, any music store for sale.
Wonderful.
It's excellent.
I know I just interviewed Chris Algi last week, and he's moved all over to Rednet as well.
He's been a Red user since the 80s, using the Red 3 compressors, been a staple of his sound.
Yeah.
Now the plugins have been modeled after those versions that he liked to use, the Transformer versions. They sound amazing, and they're free once you register your products from Focusrite, so you get those 2 plugins.
Great.
And then the rest of the gear he's incorporating left and right to cut gear through. He's an amazing engineer. I'm one of his biggest fans, and he actually mixed a record of mine many, many years ago, but that's a whole other sad story. But he's an amazing engineer, and he picked Rednet because, and the red interfaces, because they are part of the unit without coloring the sound in a negative way. So what you hear is what you're putting into it. So that's always, like I said, back to the sound of Focusrite.
Well, what I like about Focusrite is a lot of my users use like the 2i2s, and it's like the beginning of the growth.
Yes.
So being comprehensive and making a product that's an entry level right through to a very high-end professional is very important.
We have 5 levels of products that can go through your whole growth as a musician and as an engineer. That can take you from, as you said, I want to be a musician to I'm ready to produce whoever.
Yeah. It's important to me. I support a lot of, I support some microphone companies, and I support companies that look after people from the ground up. Just selling to a bunch of elite guys like me that, oh yeah, this is what I do, and it doesn't make any sense to me. It's a whole new world now, and kids can, as you know, can open up their laptop, plug in their little interface, and they can make incredible music, and all that's really stopping them is the creativity, and that's the message to give out there, is it's all about the creativity.
Well, you never want the technology to get in the way of the creativity.
Exactly.
And our stuff sets up easy, it works easy, and now you're making music, which is why we got into this business.
I just interviewed Andrew Sheps, and he said that it's important for him to tell people that don't rely on your equipment to make great music.
That's right.
And the fact that you guys make something that's an entry-level piece right up to like Crystal Algae using it says a lot to me, and I think that's a great product.
Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
My
Thanks.
pleasure.
And then tell us about your guitar stack, because you're really known for being a guitar player's engineer, and that you have a lot of different approaches to recording guitar.
Oh, this one was a fun one.
All kinds of interesting techniques. And let us in some secrets on how you do this.
Well, this one was fun because if you solo that absolutely completely annihilated Dave chorus guitar, the yellow one. Yep. It's nice. So that is a that was a deluxe. So like a Fender Deluxe.
12-inch speaker, small combo amp.
Tiny little thing. We'd rented it, and he ended up buying one after this. I mean, classic 65 Deluxe. I mean, that's probably half the records that we listened to.
Certainly Tom Petty, Neil Young.
Yeah, such a great sounding amp. So it was that. It was the reverb pedal. What's the electro harmonics called? Oh, the Holy Grail. So it's the Holy Grail providing the reverb. And then we had some fun with it by facing it into the live room in Sausalito, and those are the drum mics. So if you listen to those soloed, so that's the ambience in the room. Just fun. So there's a lot of verb going on, of one way, shape, or form. That's an LA3
They were just
compression.
sitting up there. This is the drum mic. This is what you had left over. The drum mics were still up from when you done earlier, and said, "All right, leave these up. Let's add this in, see what they sound like."
Yeah. It's that chaos. It's just this chaotic kind of guitar part.
Looks like you have a couple acoustic parts here.
Yep, and that's Joe, who's the co-writer of the song.
And tell us about what's going on here.
There's a KM56.
Nickel capsule Neumann, great mic.
Yeah, I mean, I also had, do you know the Gefell, the 691s? Mm-hmm. They're like the 60s, 70s, kind of cheap. They've suddenly become very expensive and collectible now, but I think I bought mine for about $150. So,
Gefell is East German Neumann.
Yeah, and it was the original one before the fall of the Berlin Wall. So I have one of those, and I have a KM56. So the thing about the KM56 has a lot of body. It's really, even though it's small diaphragm, it's really nice for mandolins and violins and anything like that, because it just gives them so much lows for a little instrument.
Super popular in Nashville for all the bluegrass folk, too.
Oh, yeah.
Nickel capsule, not gold, very unusual.
Yeah, it's a really, really beautiful mic. But the 691 was really good because it rolls off all the lows in a really unique way. You know, if you're blessed to have a good selection of equipment, what's great is you can just choose something that you don't have to do that much work going in. You know, if you pick the right mic and put it in the right place, like those are mic'd on the body. They're not mic'd over the 12th or 14th fret. So what happens is on the J45, you've got this lower part here. So instead of micing between the 12th and 14th fret on the strings,
big body Gibson guitar too, large guitar.
It's micing the body. So it's micing the body here. So you've got a sound hole here. So, and it's also pointed away from the sound hole. So if you solo it again, you'll hear more wood out of it than anything. And there's no EQ or compression going in on that.
And as you're saying, it's also a pretty natural sound. It's not super bright. It's not this sort of super forward.
Something about
super
miking
jangly.
the body which really helps me and just sort of, sorry, there is compression on it going in, but there's no compression on it.
But fairly subtle in the scope of the mix. I mean, this is not the
Yeah,
mix,
when
but-
Michael mixed it, he made them a little brighter. You know, just kind of made them shimmer a little bit more, which I think is a good decision.
And which came first? Did you do the electric guitars first, or did you do the acoustic guitars first?
Electric guitars first, only because, out of necessity, because when we were tracking the bass, the original bass drums and some of the electrics are live off the floor. Most of the album contains 75% live tracks. And then with fixes, you know, obviously with fixes, you go in and punch in bass mistakes or whatever.
Would you guys like to ask Warren some questions about this process or this song?
I wanted to know, so you're using obviously dynamics on the tape. What about EQ?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, we had, I was beginning to explain before, when we finished in Sausalito, they had this great recording space they were paying $1,500 a month for, insane, you know, like in Denver. And, but they just had like, you know, a few pre's and a basic Pro Tools system. And this was like 2007, 2008, and the 1608 was just out. So I actually bought the 1608. So that was where the EQ was coming from. I think we brought in 2 Pultecs. They got quite a lot of use for the top end, but we rented the Pultecs. But they bought the 1608. A lot of, I can't remember, we split up between, I can't remember what the console was, maybe 6 to 8 graphics, and the other half were, you know, 550s. It's 550s and 560s. It's kind of a combination of both. So there was EQ going to tape where necessary. On the drums, I don't do a lot. On the drums, I'll do kick in, just to give you the kick in's usually where I get the rock from. So I'll boost the, you know, the top end on the kick on that, some lows, like some, you know, 60, but then pull it on an API 50, obviously, and then pull out some of the low mids where it gets muddy. But that's the only thing I'll do on the kick, and then the snare, I'll probably put a little bit of 100 and a little bit of 7K in or something, you know. But that's the only real major EQ on the drums. The rest of it's just kind of mic placement and stuff like that. And compression-wise, just kick in again and snare top. You know, I find with the rooms, sometimes I'll do fun stuff. You know, you take one mono room mic and crush it and do something fun for some energy. But that's usually when you're in a small room and you're trying to create something that's inspiring when you're tracking.
And in this one, it's the stereo room has really got the most personality, it seems like it.
Yeah, those are...
The monos seem closer than...
Yeah, there's a high pair pointed down at the kit, measured in phase with the snare, so they're equal distance with the snare. And then the lows, it was actually a really nice studio that had parquet floors. And so that was miking the floors. So, and I don't think there was anything exotic. I don't think we had access to any exotic mics. I believe we had Shaw's, the KSM...
32, maybe? 44?
Probably. 32, 33s, something like that. They're, you know, mid-level, mid-price kind of Shaw's. And the low
Which is
down
an important lesson, which means basically that it's about making the record. It's not necessarily always the tools, right?
Yeah, I mean...
Figuring out where to put them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, a pair of 414s. I mean, I really like, if anybody who watches what I do, you notice I use a lot of those Lewitt mics because they're so inexpensive and they sound as close to AKGs as I can think, but they're like half the price. Sorry, AKG, I don't mean to be. But I'm just saying it's like, even for me, I have a lot of equipment, but when I have to start buying pairs of things, and it's just ambience, if there's a mic out there that's $600 that sounds like a $1,500 bike, like it's still my personal money. I have to feed my family. I'm buying a pair of, you know, LCT 550s. Those sound great. I put them up high, put them on the floor, I put them on pianos. They sound fantastic, you know, and they match perfectly. So yeah, it's not always the tools, and there are so many. These days, it's so much easier when you're, look, if you're going to have one incredible vocal mic, have an incredible vocal mic. If you're going to have one incredible vocal chain or guitar chain, get it, you know, incredible Class A mic pre with compressors and stuff. But when you're starting to build out your mic locker now, you know, none of us here are, you know, making multi-million dollars to buy like massive exotic mic collections. That was the studios only that were doing that. So now there's incredible mics available at great prices.
Yeah, I think you can get a better $300 mic today than you ever could at the end of the day.
I think 500 seems to be where I like. Seems to be pretty amazing.
So we're at the Lavry booth. Now, I use Lavry to mix to. I have, we call this a Lavry Blue. This is Brad, by the way.
Nice to meet
I think probably an older version of this.
you. It's modular, so
It's a modular. So I have the 2-channel version. Right, fantastic. So I just got to tell you, like, Mark Endert's one of my oldest friends and one of the best mixers in the world, and he masters, mixes, I should say, to a Blue. He's the one that basically told me to get it. And so I pestered Jack, and Jack has a relationship, and we managed to get a Blue. They're wonderful sounding, so as you know, we only talk about products that we actually love and use. So tell us about this new product that you have.
Okay, this is basically an audio purist master clock. There are other models out there that try and do a lot of things at the same time, and that's contrary to good audio performance. One issue is if you have an internal crystal that's not an audio frequency, the only way to generate audio frequencies is to lock a PLL to it and make a much higher frequency signal and then write it down. It's almost like you have an external clock synchronized inside the box before it even leaves, so it limits the jitter performance. So this just uses very high accuracy fixed crystals, which give you excellent long-term stability. And certainly for audio purposes, beyond anything anybody could possibly hear. And delivering the best conversion quality. Jitter is the biggest problem with conversion. So it basically, you choose your 2 bass frequencies, 44.1 or 48, and then you have 3 sets of 4 outputs where you can choose multiples of that, or you can have them all at the same frequency. But you can generate like 48K, 96K, and 192 without the problems of being different enough to create more jitter, because it's an even division.
There's probably a lot of much smarter people than me at the moment that are actually understanding everything he's saying.
The focus is on the best audio quality possible.
Are you getting a lot of mastering engineers getting this?
Well, this is the first time we've shown it.
So, oh wow! So there will be a lot of mastering engineers.
It's been very positive feedback so far. We have lots of customers that have said, well, I got rid of my external clock because we used your converter as our master clock, because Dan knows how to design very stable low jitter clocks. And it was a logical outgrowth of that to design the master clock.
I completely agree and concur with that.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
A lot of what people talk about with the digital sound is mostly related to jitter and bad conversion. So if you take that factor out, people say, oh, it sounds analog. Well, it doesn't sound. That's the key, is it doesn't have a sound at that point.
There's just something about the Lavry stuff when I'm mixing to it. I don't use any specific function. I literally keep it clean. I know that there's some the saturation modes. I don't use it like that. I know some people do. I've got 192s and I've got this, and if I print to the 192, it sounds great. If I print to this, it sounds better. I'm not going to be that guy who says it sounds bad, the 192. No, it doesn't sound bad. It sounds really good, but this sounds better.
Yeah.
And I actually am not smart enough to know why. You are, but I'm not.
Well, you know what you hear, and that's it. And most of the people that have our gear, it's the same way. I get calls like, I have a technical question, but first I want to say thank you. I don't have to fix everything I record anymore. Because they would work very hard on their mix and get it to sound just the way they wanted. They print it back through another brand of converters, and that's what happened.
Look, thanks, Brad, ever so much for your time. I really appreciate it. As I say, we're talking to a lot of people here that we actually love their products. And I use the Blue on a daily basis. I mix to it. It sounds fantastic. So thank you for making such a great product. Okay, here with Peter Reardon from Shadow Hills. How are you?
Very good one.
Now, this is a device I saw because I was over at Dave Pensado's place the other day, the Oculus. What can you tell us about this?
Oculus is a monitor controller.
Yep.
And it's wireless. So this is the remote control for the base station here. So it's machined out of a solid piece of aluminum. It has 5 sources, 3 sets of speakers, talkback, dim, mono stereo, all the cuts.
Right.
All of the major functions from a console master section that you might want, it has in spades.
Right.
Oscilloscope outputs, built-in talkback microphone. But if you're on the couch, maybe you need an extra one that's capable of that. Modern things too. If you have someone has an iPod, they need to play something. There's a Class A buffer you can engage. It sounds fantastic.
That's fantastic.
The headphones really sound wonderful. They're Class A headphone amplifiers.
Right.
And so the whole monitoring section is something people don't really consider as much as they should. So ours is set up that whatever you're feeding from your DAW loops through naturally.
Right.
And when you hit talkback, it blends with that. Or if you hit cue follow, they'll listen to what you're listening to. So for instance, you can say, listen to the demo.
Right.
It was so much better, you need to do that again.
Right.
And they probably did. And so other things too, with the cuts, we can cut the left speaker, but in mono, have the right channel play on both sides. Just those kinds of, perfect for auditioning overheads in the proper perspective, not being deceived by the direction.
Right.
And then also with the speakers, of course, you can trim the different speaker levels so you have the right sound pressure level no matter what you're playing through. And if you're using a subwoofer, you can trim the subwoofer levels to be different for each set of speakers.
Right. That's a great feature.
So it's just very useful, and I would rather be on the couch. So I can sit on the couch for 18 hours, and then it charges with Cat 5 connected to the Oculus.
18 hours charge time?
18 hours, because there's 2 lithium-ion batteries inside.
Oh, wow.
And then while it's tethered, it can still work perfectly.
Right. And this is Bluetooth?
It's not Bluetooth.
What is it?
It's a wireless format that uses an XP module that is for development, that doesn't interfere with any of your wireless routers or any of those things, or wireless cameras or what have you. Yeah.
Great. So it's completely independent of your wireless network.
It's completely independent.
That's good.
You can get further away than you can hear your monitors.
Wow.
So it's a really interesting solution. The most important thing is that it sounds fantastic.
Right. Wonderful.
It's a passive system, and I tell you, a properly implemented passive monitor controller will beat out any other system every time. And this one, there's things that we've done that are very special. Esoteric resistors. It just sounds incredible. So for your consideration, the Oculus.
And it's a great name.
Yes.
Thanks very much for showing to us.
Thank you, Warren.
Appreciate it.
You want to talk about the vocal process for this record? Because these are pretty critical things for this.
Yeah, the vocals are BAE 1073, but the way I did it with Isaac, and with a lot of younger singers, is they're really dynamic. He's not as dynamic as some, but pretty massively dynamic, and so I ran a parallel chain. So I was blessed because we had a budget, so we rented stuff that he didn't have. I had 2 160s. So I come out of the 1073.
DBX 160.
Yeah, but the VU, blessed to have the VU, so we split to one VU into the other, and that went into an 1176. That was set about 3-to-1 and 3-to-1, 20-to-1, 20-to-1, and then multed back into one signal. The way it's set is when he's singing like this, it's lightly compressing. When he's singing like this, it's the other chain is taking over and compressing on that. And what you end up with, if you look at the vocal there, it's a pretty even vocal. Oh, it's back down the bottom, sorry. It's just in your face most of the time. There it is. It's green there in the middle, vocal malt. Play the verse into the chorus, yeah go ahead.
When everything was falling apart, all my days were spent by telephone, but never
So I mean, that's like, just a second. So he'll be like, telephone never. That's how dynamic he is. So it's like that parallel compression. Now, a lot of people now record with almost no compression and then sit there in clip gain and, try and pull it up. Part of what it is I kind of like the sound of those combination of compressors. I can't remember who first...
Pulling up is, you get all of that.
Yeah, and you can do a lot in clip gain in Pro Tools and in volume rise and stuff, and I still think that that's the way to go for mixing, to do as much volume automation as possible over just generically compressing stuff. I personally still like doing that. But I think for printing, I love being able to print, because I love the sound of a 160. As long as it's not, if that needle's doing this on a 160, you're screwed, because it's like, literally sounds like a choking. It's very warm, and then the 1176, as you know, just has that little grit.
It's just forward now.
Yeah, just little extra whatever it is. And so those two together has always been my favorite on pretty much anything. If you gave me a 1073, a 160, an 1176, and a 57, I think you pretty much make a record.
You're ready to make a record.
Yeah. The secret is, and when I look at the guys that we stand on, like the Bruce Botnicks and stuff like that, those guys were doing everything on fader. And so what I try to do is, you know the song well, you get the lyric sheet, you sit there and you mark out where the singer's going to go for it and scream and all this kind of stuff. And with a 1073, I literally was like going click between lines. Well, I knew he was going to scream his head off. Just click it down for that line. And as you know, there's a perceptible die when you move between clicks, so you've got to be pretty rapid and know how to move, or sometimes you can cut half a word off. But, you just get used to it. And then, so I'm sitting there usually with my 1073. I've got one side, I've got the input gain, and then I've got the output volume, and I'm usually just kind of doing this through the song. But it gets it like so fat and even, and I don't know, it seems worth the effort.
So this kind of arcs back to the thing is that you're pretty far inside the song, because you know what he's going to sing. So you're writing your game between verse and chorus, or different soft lines.
Well, it's like
you're
words.
Grabbing your compressor. You're pretty far inside this.
Well, I think that to make it not sound quite so daunting, the compression chain, once you set it up to receive a certain amount of gain between one set which is for the soft and one set is for the loud, that doesn't really change once you've figured out what it is, because you're adjusting your gain into it. Because you're using like 1176 as a fixed threshold compressor, so that you've set the gain to it and everything. So it's not as daunting as it might sound. You've got your lyric sheet, and you're sitting there and you're making sure that input gain you don't distort, because a Neve to me, a 1073 sounds really good. You click it, you hear the distortion. Click it about 1. That's the sweet spot on a Neve. On a 1073. I was talking to Joe Barisi about it. He's like, that's the magic spot. As soon as you hear the distortion, click it back 1, that's the sound.
Some of the drive, but not too much.
It's driving, you just don't quite hear it yet. You know what I mean? So you've got it just at that point, pre-distortion, and then when he goes up and wails, you just know when to click it back 1 or sometimes 2. And then you're adjusting your output going into your compression. So you're just pretty much doing this. And, don't get me wrong, there's maybe 30 seconds where you're doing nothing. It's not you're going like this. I mean, there may be times that you're doing that, with different singers, but, it's just knowing the song and knowing where they're going to do it. And it only takes a take or two. You just sit there and you just draw a line under the word or under the thing or ring it or whatever is your thing, so you know what to do.
But think about this. You need to write down the lyrics. You need to request a copy of the lyrics. You need to take notes while you're doing this. Pay attention. Be in that moment and be ready to do it. Sir.
Yeah, more of a local question. I'm sure it's something that a lot of us kind of struggle with. I know I do, but in your opinion, when is the mix done?
When is the mix done?
Yeah. Wow. When are you okay to be like, this is good enough, or what's your threshold?
Depends on what your philosophy is. Like, what's my philosophy, what's somebody else's? I work with a lot of mixers, especially a lot of big mixers, where they get it to a place where they think it sounds really good, but then they let go of it. And they let the band take it over the finish line. Because a lot of guys I know that are professional mixers, and that's all they do. They realize that if you emotionally get so into something to put that extra 1%, and then the band goes, yeah, I hate the drum sound. So it depends on who you're asking. I just know, without mentioning their names, I know guys, they will just go to that point where it sounds great, and then they'll get it to the band, get the band to start interacting. But I also think for you, if you're up and coming and you're working with people, involve the band at that last start, because get them to help you take it over the finish line. Because they might give you an idea that you never even thought of. The one thing about music that's really important, because here we are at this conference and we're all big fancy people talking about how to record music and all this kind of stuff. But you know what? That's not why people buy music. They don't buy music for me. I'd make absolutely no difference to music. People buy it because they like what this guy is telling them. And this, Isaac is singing about what he went through when he suddenly became very wealthy and didn't really understand what that meant. And he's a really devout Christian. And for him, it was really hard to understand what does all this mean? And not in like a, what does this mean? But like in a real deep level, he didn't need the money, he was very happy, and so this song is about his feeling. So that's what people were responding to. They were like responding to that. Now, all my job was to present it in the best possible way, you know, and understand his and the band's vision. So I think that, an answer to your question, I know it's long, but the answer would be, get it to a point where you feel really good about it, then involve your artist to get them to help you take it past the finish line. And very often, these artists may not have made many records, but nor does Joe Public. They don't make records, but they know what they like. So their opinion is very valid. Let the artist bring it in and let them help you. And I've learned more from artists than I have from anybody else, because artists are like, oh, I really don't like that drum sound. What happens if you did? And then they'll have some crazy idea, which doesn't even sound remotely like it'll work, and then you'll try it, and you'll be like, wow, I just found a new technique. So, you know, living in a box and just pleasing yourself. Did I just say that? Yeah. Just making music for yourself is not gonna do you much good. You know what I mean? So I think that to me is the answer. Get it as good as to a point where you feel happy with it, and then let go and be very capable and emotionally aware that you might have somebody hate what you do, even if you think it's the world's greatest mix. And then respond to it and work with it, because you'll grow so much by having that interaction with an artist or a label or a manager or the producer if you're the mixer. You'll learn so much more from that than sort of being entrenched in I think the mix is done, you know.
Well, I'm John Krivit. I'm the president-elect of the Audio Engineering Society.
He's the big boss.
And we are so happy that Warren Huart is here. And I have so many students who love his internet education, everything that he's doing, Produce Like a Pro. It is huge. And if you come to the Audio Engineering Society convention, you might have a chance to meet Warren. He's the nicest guy and does all kinds of things. And you might have yesterday been able to hear his awesome tracks that he recorded.
It was a lot of fun.
And people are still talking about how wonderful it was. So we'll see you next year at the Audio Engineering Society convention in Los Angeles.
This has been really successful, this one. And today is, I mean, it's insane. The age group dropped to like 25 and below, so it's really good.
It's the next generation
It's good
for
to
the
see a
Audio
lot of kids
Engineering
coming.
Society.
And there's all these amazing products, like guys making products like $300 or $400 that we would normally attribute to like $1,000 plus.
Great.
People are understanding that most kids have like a little Focusrite $200 thing, and they need good quality going in.
Yeah.
I just interviewed Andrew Streps about this, and he's just like, yeah, he's not summing anymore, he's not using consoles, but what he is saying is we need to input good quality signal going in.
Yeah.
So I love that manufacturers are making inexpensive mics and inexpensive mic pre's that sound good. It's really helping a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of fun. So have fun. See us next year.